They say if you feel breath on your neck at midnight but turn and see nothing, run. Because what follows you in that moment isn't human, it's not even death as you understand it. It is judgment, ancient and unseen. It is Ogbunabali the night killer who does not knock, does not speak, and does not forgive. In the dead stillness between moonrise and the cock's first crow, entire compounds have fallen silent not from sleep, but from fear. Mothers hold their children close, elders keep their eyes to the sky, and warriors, no matter how fierce, know not to walk with arrogance after dark. Because when Ogbunabali walks, he walks alone but carries the sins of others with him. Not even the strongest Dibia can call him off. No offering will buy you mercy. No prayer can reverse the mark. Because once your name crosses his shadow, it is already too late. But who or what is Ogbunabali? Is he a god? A ghost? A curse left behind by blood and betrayal? Why does his presence still ripple through generations of Igbo memory, like a blade dragged through water? And perhaps more haunting, who was the first soul he ever claimed? This is not just a myth. This is a warning, carved into oral tradition, passed down through trembling voices around dying fires. To understand this legend, we must go back far beyond the reach of colonial maps, before the roads were paved and the gods were renamed. Back to a time when the earth breathed stories, and the night was not empty, but watching. You're watching folktale cinema, where the past is never truly past and legends rise from the ashes of forgotten truths. If you love African folklore with a dark edge, stories that grip your mind and pierce your soul, make sure to like, subscribe, and click the bell. Because what we're about to uncover will make you question how safe the night really is. And before we continue, tell me in the comments, do you believe in justice that walks? Have you ever heard of Ogbunabali in your village, your home, your grandmother's whispers? I want to hear your version, your fear, your questions, your truth. I'll be in the comments section with you. Now lean closer, because what I'm about to tell you may follow you long after this story ends. Long before the white man brought his scriptures and his ships. Long before bullets replaced blessings. There was a town hidden deep in the belly of the Igbo forest called Umuozera. It was a land where the trees leaned in to listen to your secrets, and even the wind carried tales to the gods. Umuozera thrived. Its people farmed rich red earth, held sacred festivals, and made pacts with the spirits. But what held the village together wasn't just tradition, it was fear. A fear both known and unnamed. And then, one night, a man named Ezemuo was found dead in the market square. Not just dead, his body was whole untouched by blade or beast, but his eyes had burst in their sockets. His mouth was twisted open, as though he had seen something that no man should ever see. No wound, no poison, no trace. Just death cold, precise, and final. The elders gathered, the Dibia cast bones, the women wailed, but none could explain it. Until an old woman stepped forward. Her name was Neka, a widow who spoke more to spirits than to the living. With her thin, cracked voice, she said one word, Ogbunabali. At first, the villagers scoffed. That was an old tale, a children's threat, a myth told to keep warriors humble. But Neka didn't flinch. She said Ezemuo had been marked for what he did. You see, Ezemuo was not a man of clean hands. Behind his titles, behind his loud laughter in the council house, there was rot. He had stolen yam from the widow's harvest, taken bribes during land settlements, and once some said caused a young maiden's death through a ritual gone wrong. But no one dared speak up. He was powerful. He had friends. He was untouchable. But Ogbunabali doesn't need your proof. He doesn't ask for permission. He waits. He watches. And then he takes. That night began a season of dread. One by one, others began to fall. All at night. All without a sound. The village grew quiet. Songs stopped. The moon no longer brought romance, only terror. And every time someone died, it wasn't just a body they buried. It was a secret laid bare. Because the dead weren't innocent. Each one had something to hide. A man who beat his wife, a priest who faked his visions, a boy who poisoned his brother for inheritance. One by one, the darkness peeled away their masks and left their corpses as testimony. The people finally accepted the truth. Ogbunabali was not a myth. He was a reckoning. Among those who lived in Umuozara was a man named Okoye, the town's strongest wrestler, the envy of all youth, a man of great charisma and hidden cruelty. Okoye feared only one thing: losing control. He had seen the bodies. He had heard the whispers. And he had a past that could not survive the light. Years ago, as a young warrior, Okoye had joined a raiding party that attacked a neighboring village. The raid was illegal, unsanctioned by the council. In the bloodlust, Okoye had killed a child not in battle, but in panic. A child that ran too close. A child who looked up at him and didn't even scream. Okoye buried the memory. He built a new name. He married. He fathered sons. But as the deaths mounted in Umuozara, he began to wake at night cold, sweating, eyes darting to the corners of the room, listening. One day he went to the Dibia, begged for protection. The Dibia said, "What is following you is not a man. You cannot bribe what you cannot see." But Okoye tried anyway. He built a shrine, slaughtered goats, sent his wife and children away. He covered every mirror, burned his clothes, even tried to confess to the elders, twisting the truth so it sounded less vile. But the night does not forget, and neither does Ogbunabali. When they found Okoye's body, he was hanging from the udala tree in the village square, not by a rope, but suspended midair, feet inches from the ground. No wounds, no sound. His face was frozen in horror. The tree bore no fruit that year, and for a generation, no child played beneath it. In time, the killing slowed, not because Ogbunabali had vanished, but because the people had changed. They spoke truth more often. They judged each other less. They remembered that not all wrongdoings are caught by men, but none escape the night. Even today, in certain Igbo villages, if a man dies strangely clean body, cold eyes, no struggle, people still whisper his name. Not with fear, but with respect. Because Ogbunabali is not evil. He is the weight of every sin unpunished, the hand that balances the scale, the darkness that sees through lies. So if you ever find yourself walking alone at midnight and you feel something behind you, something quiet, something still, don't speak, don't turn. Just ask yourself, what have I done that no one knows about? And if your heart stutters, even for a moment, run. Unlike the other deities who thrived on offerings, songs, and the smell of burning incense, Ogbunabali asked for none of it. He did not thirst for praise. He demanded only one thing: justice, uncompromising, absolute, and final. In the old days, his name was not sung in praise like Amadioha or written in verse like Allah. It was whispered, passed through clenched teeth and furrowed brows, often followed by glances over the shoulder. There were no shrines built for him, no dances to appease his spirit. He did not live among the gods. He walked among men, unseen but never unfelt. His altar was the cold silence of midnight. His sermon was fear. To the untrained eye, Ogbunabali might be mistaken for a demon, but he was not. In the worldview of the Igbo people, he was the hand that corrected imbalance, the harbinger of retribution. He was not evil. He was consequence. Born from the tears of the unjustly slain and the silence of unpunished crimes, Ogbunabali was believed to have emerged from the very roots of cosmic justice. When blood was shed in betrayal or malice, and no atonement followed, when no offering was made, no justice sought, the earth would cry out, and it was in that cry that Ogbunabali took form. Silent, resolute, relentless. He never spoke. He never warned. He simply marked. And once a soul was marked, not even the most powerful Dibia could undo what had been set in motion. They used to say in Umuozara, an old village tucked deep within the hills, that when Ogbunabali marked a man, the wind changed. Dogs refused to bark, fires burned lower, and the silence that followed was so thick, it felt like death had settled in the air. In that village lived a man named Okiki, To those who saw him in daylight, Okiki was nothing but a palm wine tapper. He had a crooked smile, a soft voice, and a way of greeting every passerby that made people say he had a good heart. But behind his kind eyes and his woven hat was a secret buried in shadows and blood. It was the year the yams failed. The rains came late, the sun was unforgiving. Hunger gnawed at bellies and envy began to bloom like a poisonous vine. Okiki had always stood in the shadow of his younger brother, Ifeanyi. Ifeanyi was charming, successful, and the women of the village sang his praises. Even the elders sought his advice during moonlit gatherings. Okiki, in contrast, was the forgotten brother. And so one day, with bitterness riding his heart and desperation clouding his mind, Okiki invited Ifeanyi into the forest. He spoke of a rare medicinal bark that would cure their ailing mother. Ifeanyi, ever trusting, followed. The forest, thick and ancient, swallowed their voices. When they reached a lonely clearing surrounded by iroko trees, Okiki hesitated. His hands trembled as he reached for his machete, but the poison in his heart had already taken root. He swung, once, twice. The sound of the blade slicing flesh echoed through the forest. Ifeanyi fell without a scream. The earth drank his blood, and the trees stood witness. Okiki buried his brother beneath a pile of leaves and moss, whispered a hurried prayer, and ran. Back in the village, Okiki wept. He told the villagers that Ifeanyi had gone missing. He joined the search. He wailed before the shrine and even offered the little yam he had left. But the earth does not forget, and Ogbunabali had heard. That night, Okiki slept. He believed the forest had kept his secret. But midnight is when truth walks. It started with silence. Not the comforting kind that comes after a long day, but a suffocating, unnatural stillness. The dogs, usually howling, were silent. The wind had stopped. Even the crickets held their breath. Then, tap, 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 footsteps, slow, deliberate. Okiki's heart slammed against his ribs. No one walked at that hour. No one. He rushed to his door, bolting it. He whispered his mother's prayers. He clutched a charm his grandfather had given him, but the footsteps grew louder. Then, they stopped. Silence. And then a whisper. His name carried like smoke through a dead forest. Okiki. He leapt from his mat, drenched in sweat. The oil lamp flickered once and died. The room was swallowed in black. The door creaked open, but no one stood there. Still, something was inside, a presence, heavy, ancient, cold. Okiki couldn't move. His limbs betrayed him. His mouth opened, but no sound came. The chill of the air pierced through his skin, and then nothing. By dawn, Okiki was found sprawled across the threshold of his hut. No wound, no blood, no sign of struggle. Just a look of pure, unfiltered terror frozen on his face. In his right hand, clenched so tight it had to be pried open, was a single black feather. The village elder, Nzobi, picked it up, studied it, and whispered, "Ogbunabali has passed." But Okiki's death was not the end. It was only the beginning. What no one knew was that his crime had awakened something long dormant. For decades, the village of Amozara had buried its sins. They spoke of harmony while silencing victims. They performed rituals, but refused true justice. And now, with one death, the soil stirred. The old spirits began to murmur. Ogbunabali was walking again. Not just for Okiki, but for the village itself. There were whispers among the elders of the girl who vanished during the new moon, last seen being led away by a wealthy trader. Her body never found. The trader's wealth grew, while the family grieved in silence. Of the twins thrown into the river at birth, cursed by superstition. Of the Dibia who took in orphans only to use them in rituals. Secrets. Too many. Too deep. Now, as midnight approached each night, more doors creaked, more fires flickered, and black feathers began to appear. At first, they thought it was coincidence. Perhaps an animal. Perhaps children playing tricks. Until Chief Agu, the oldest and most powerful man in the village, was found dead in his compound, eyes wide open, arms stretched toward the heavens. No wound, no struggle, just a black feather on his tongue. Panic spread. The people ran to the shrines. Offerings poured in. Goats, yams, cola nuts. But the drums remained silent. The gods were not speaking. Because this was not the work of the gods. This was the work of justice. Ogbunabali had returned, not as a punishment, but as a reckoning. The forest grew louder at night. The air carried whispers. Children cried in their sleep. Mothers clutched charms. Elders dug up old secrets and tried to bury them deeper. But the soil no longer accepted lies. One by one, the guilty fell, sometimes in their homes, sometimes on the road. Always the same, no marks, no wounds, just fear and a black feather. Those who had once ruled with cruelty now walked with dread. The hunter who had stolen from his dying neighbor, the midwife who swapped a child at birth, the masquerader who beat a man to death under the mask of tradition. All marked, all taken. The village called for the highest dibia in the land, a man named Udinkwo. He came with bones, blood, and fire. He cast his shells and chanted into the night, but even he trembled when the spirit spoke. Justice walks, you cannot bind what walks in truth. Udinkwo warned them. This is not a curse you can break with sacrifice. This is a mirror. What you see is yourselves, and what walks is your reflection. They begged for mercy, but justice has no ears, only eyes. And so the legend of Ogbunabali grew, not as a tale to frighten children, but as a truth to haunt adults. A reminder that silence breeds vengeance, that the earth remembers, that justice delayed is never justice denied. And in villages like Almazara, when the wind stills and a feather appears on your doorstep, even today, people whisper, Ogbunabali walks, and they listen for the footsteps. After Okiki's mysterious death, the village of Almazara slipped into a thick fog of unease. No one spoke his name aloud anymore. Children were warned not to wander too far, and the old footpath to his compound grew wild with thorns and neglect. But the one place they feared most was the forest, especially the ancient tree near the stream. That was where, they whispered, Ifeanyi's spirit now lingered, restless and unforgiving. Strange things began to happen. Fires would not light without a prayer. Mortars refused to pound yam unless salt and cola were sprinkled first. Even the goats, stubborn creatures they were, stopped grazing near the forest's edge. Something had shifted. The land no longer felt safe. One evening, a young boy named Chitty returned from fishing, his eyes wide with terror. I saw him, he said, panting. A tall man, no face, standing beneath the blood tree. The villagers froze. The blood tree. The ancient hako tree near the stream was older than memory. Its trunk was wide enough that 4 grown men couldn't wrap their arms around it. Red sap oozed from its bark like thick blood. Some said the tree drank the sorrow of the unjust. Others believed the roots beneath were not roots at all, but bones those who had vanished, whose justice had been denied. The elders gathered immediately. Nzobi, the village seer, smeared chalk across his brow and tossed his sacred cowries. They clicked against the earth like teeth. His face turned grim. Ogbunabali still walks, he whispered, but now he remembers. You see, Ogbunabali was never just a ghost or a wailing shadow. He was born from betrayal, a betrayal older than even the hako tree itself. The elders told a story passed only through whispers, of a warrior named Auna centuries ago. A brave man wrongly accused of murdering a rival during a bitter land dispute. Jealous chiefs condemned him without trial. Stripped of honor, Auna walked into the forest alone. But before he disappeared, he knelt beneath the hoko and swore an oath. Let my bones become the eyes of justice. Let my soul never rest until the wicked sleep with open eyes. Some say that's where he died. Others believe the gods, especially Chukwu, took pity and transformed him into something more, a divine hand of justice, a force that punished those whom man's justice could not reach. That force became Ogbunabali. And so when lies buried truth, When the tears of the innocent soaked the ground unheard, Ogbunabali would rise again. 2 moons after Okiki's death, another body was found. Obiaolu, the wealthiest yam merchant in Amozara, dead in his barn, mouth agape, eyes wide, no marks, just a black feather on his chest. Rumors swirled. Obiaolu had long been whispered about. It was said he once paid a dibia to curse his rival. The rival had died of a mysterious illness. No one had proven anything. No one had tried. Until now. It was clear. Ogbunabali was not finished. Desperate, the elders began midnight sacrifices. They lit fires at the ancestral shrines. Drummers beat their hands raw until dawn. But nothing worked. The deaths didn't stop. And something else became even more disturbing. These weren't just old crimes being punished. Ogbunabali was peeling away the layers of the village's soul, exposing things even time had tried to forget. One night, Mama Jedika, a widow known for her calm wisdom, claimed she saw a shadow crouching on her rooftop, whispering her late husband's name. The villagers rushed to check. The roof was empty, but her dog was dead, lying stiff, its eyes open and glassy. "He walks above us now," Mama Jedika murmured. "Even the rooftops are not safe." A new kind of fear took hold. Friends eyed each other with suspicion. Brothers watched their brothers like strangers, and everyone began to dread the forest. Then one night, Ezenwa, a young hunter, barely 20, vanished. But Ezenwa was no murderer. He was kind, an orphan raised by the village. He shared his meat with the elders, nursed the sick, taught children to fish. If Ogbunabali had taken him, something had changed. Or had it? The villagers gathered beneath the great Udala tree. Nzobi stood before them, his voice grim. "Ogbunabali does not kill without cause. If Ezenwa is gone, then either we are blind or we are being tested. Let no one enter the forest tonight. Let the drums be still. We must seek understanding, not escape." But Ezenwa wasn't dead. He woke up in a place not of this world, where the sky flickered like fireflies, and the rivers ran backward. The forest twisted with whispers, and the air was thick with sorrow. He wandered, alone, through a ghostly reflection of Amazara. Spirits drifted past him, speaking in riddles. Shadows curled around his feet. It was the realm of Ogbunabali, a place between justice and judgment. Then a voice, deep, without form. "Ezenwa, do you carry blood on your hands?" Trembling, he whispered, "No." "Then carry the memory of those who do." Suddenly, the shadows around him began to take shape. Figures from the village emerged: Obiaolu, Okiki, others whose crimes had never seen light. And then, his father. Ezenwa froze. The man had died in war, or so they said. But now here he stood, face hidden, a machete in hand. Blood dripped from its blade. "Your father's sins echo in your blood," the voice said. "I am not him," Ezenwa cried. "Then show me who you are." From the trees came a beast, red-eyed, twisted, monstrous. Wrath made flesh, it lunged. Ezenwa ran, he tripped, he bled, but he never stopped fighting, until, breathless, he stumbled before the great Yoko tree, the same tree where Anna had once sworn vengeance. He placed his palm upon its bark. Everything stopped. When Ezenwa opened his eyes, he was lying by the stream. Dawn had broken. He was alive. On his chest, a black handprint. No wounds. The villagers found him and brought him to Nzobi. The elder looked at him, tears in his eyes. "Ogbunabali has tested your spirit, not for guilt, but for courage, for truth. You have returned from the realm of shadows." And so the people began to understand. Ogbunabali wasn't only punishing the past, he was warning the present. Each generation would be tested. Would they remain silent, protect secrets, and repeat the sins? Or would they face their truths before the god returned again? But just when peace began to settle like morning dew, a chilling discovery shattered it. Deep in the forest, an abandoned shrine was found desecrated, ashes disturbed, blood on stone, a name carved into the altar. Ogbunabali's, but scratched in reverse. Someone had summoned him, someone alive. This was no longer just divine justice. It was manipulation. Whispers began of a man named Duru, a former Dibya, exiled for performing forbidden rites. He lived alone at the edge of the forest, cloaked in red chalk and black beads, always seen with a raven perched on his shoulder. It was Duru who disturbed the shrine. It was Duru who carved Ogbunabali's name backwards, a forbidden act, one meant to reverse the god's gaze, to control him. And for the first time, justice itself was no longer free. It had been summoned, and soon it would be directed. Duru wasn't seeking justice. He wanted power, raw, unrelenting power. A father broken by grief, twisted by the flames of rage. His only son had died under false accusations, and not a soul had lifted a finger to uncover the truth. Not the gods, not the elders, not even the spirits that whispered in the trees. In Duru's heart, justice had become a myth. If the gods refused to speak, he would make them scream. One moonless night, cloaked in silence thick enough to choke, Duru entered the forbidden grove, the cursed circle where even shadows dared not linger. Here, among roots that had tasted ancient blood, he prepared for what no man should ever attempt, the rite of the forgotten, a summoning known only to the lost Dibya of the Udani clan. He carried with him grave dust stolen from the resting ground of twins, a broken mirror from a mourning widow's altar, and the blood of a night owl freshly slain beneath a weeping moon. With trembling fingers, he painted a circle on the earth and knelt at its center. Then he whispered, voice thin and cracked, Ogbunabali, I do not fear you. Come, I will guide your hand. The wind died. The trees froze. A raven screamed overhead, and then the wind spoke back. Its voice was no whisper. It was truth itself. The hand that points at death must also touch the grave. Then silence, deafening and final. By morning, Duru was gone. His compound had been reduced to dust and ash. The ground where it stood was flattened, as if pressed by an invisible weight. No footprints, no walls. Nothing remained but a single black feather, still warm in a cracked mirror that reflected no light, only void. The village of Amozara awoke to dread, and yet this was only the beginning. That night a wail rose from the forest, not human, not animal. It was the sound of memory being torn open, of secrets being flung into the night like dry leaves before a storm. Every night thereafter the cries grew louder. They were not screams of pain, but names. Names no one had spoken in years. Names of the dead. Names of the damned. Ijoma, Chibundu, Adanma, Obiakor. Each name carried away a story of betrayal, of crimes buried and forgotten. Husbands who beat their wives and bribed the silence. Chiefs who stole from the offerings. Fathers who denied their own blood. The forest had become a court, and Ogbunabali was the judge. One night the sky itself rebelled. It turned red, not from sun or fire, but from something deeper, a spiritual bloodletting. Crops wilted overnight, rivers reversed their flow, and the great Udala tree shed its fruit in mourning. Nzobi, now aged and gone, collapsed during prayer. That night he had a vision, and in it he saw the god. Ogbunabali stood at the edge of the forest, eyes like coals, silent as dusk. And then he spoke not in words, but in knowing. You buried truth under silence. You let the innocent rot. I did not return to destroy you. I came to remind you. Justice delayed is never justice denied. When Nzobi awoke, he gathered the people beneath the bleeding sky. His voice was cracked, but clear. Ogbunabali has not cursed us. We cursed ourselves. He came to show us what we've become. That night, something extraordinary happened. The people of Amozara, proud, secretive, cautious, began to confess. Each household lit a fire at their compound. Each villager, young and old, wrote down the sins they'd buried deep. Betrayals, stolen lands, curses laid in jealousy, children abandoned. These confessions were burned beneath the Udala tree. And for the first time, no one begged the god to leave. They thanked him. The forest quieted. No more feathers. No more sudden deaths. No more shadows whispering names in the wind. Peace returned, not with celebration, but with grief. Grief for what they had allowed. Grief for those they had failed. But the Ioko tree still stood. And on certain nights when the moon is thin as a blade, some swear it weeps. Not blood, but memory. A reminder that justice is not always loud. It does not always come wrapped in thunder or fire. Sometimes it walks in silence, with no footsteps, and it watches. Ogbunabali, the silent god of death, is more than just a terrifying legend from Igbo lore. He is a spirit of balance, a force of reckoning. In a world where justice can be twisted, bought, or buried, his legend reminds us, no secret is truly safe, no lie sleeps forever, and no crime goes unseen. In Igbo tradition, justice is not merely a man-made system, it is cosmic. It breathes through the trees, it walks in the wind, it speaks through the bones of the forgotten. Ancestors do not rest until wrongs are righted. Spirits rise when truth is ignored. When humans fail, the gods do not always wait. But beware, divine justice is not kind. It shows no favor. It does not ask questions. It remembers. And when it comes, it does not knock. It is already inside. If this story gave you chills, then you've just felt the breath of Ogbunabali, the god who does not knock, who does not speak, but simply remembers. His legend is not just a tale whispered around fires in forgotten villages. It is a mirror. And sometimes when we stare long enough, we see our own shadows staring back. In Amozara, silence was power. Secrets were currency. But Ogbunabali came not as a destroyer, but as a reminder that truth buried is never truth gone, and the dead do not sleep when justice is denied. What would happen if he walked among us today? In a world where crimes are hidden behind wealth, titles, and smiles, could a spirit like Ogbunabali still walk unseen, judging not just with rage, but with reason? Could he still hear the voices of the wronged, the betrayed, the forgotten? Ask yourself, if he came tonight, would your compound be silent, or would the wind whisper your name? Let me know in the comments below. If Ogbunabali could judge the world today, what do you think he'd find first? And if this story opened your eyes or stirred something deep within, don't let it fade. Give this video a like so more people can uncover the buried wisdom in our myths. Subscribe to Folk Tales Cinema for more untold legends, shadowed histories, and the ancient truths still echoing through our blood. We drop new stories every single week, and each one is darker, deeper, and more haunting than the last. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a whisper from the past. Because here on Folk Tales Cinema, we don't just tell stories, we remember them. And some stories, they don't die, they wait. Until next time, keep your fires lit, your spirits clean, and your name far from the wind. Ogbunabali walks, still,